Hello and welcome to another episode of Archery Releases ad Nauseum, and today we're going to examine the Participation Trophy winning new for 2024 TRU Ball Ultimate Flex. As usual, this review will be formatted like a long-form video essay or podcast. I'm going to try and throw in more B-roll during the parts where it would just be me talking into the camera to increase the visual element, so we'll see how that works out. However, if you want to pop in a set of earbuds and listen to this while you do something different, you will not be missing much. Timecodes will be in the description for individual segments. I bought this release with my own money. I am not sponsored or affiliated with TRU Ball or any other competing company, so there was nothing keeping me from expressing my honest opinions about this product. I am not fishing for clicks, and I am not acting as an extension of the company's marketing department. I only offer praise to the praiseworthy. Alright, let's get into it. The Ultimate Flex won the Best Release Aid in Show Award at the 2024 ATA show. What TRU Ball doesn't mention is that it more or less won by default because it basically had no competition. Would you take a victory lap for winning a race where half the competition didn't show up and the other half sent the backups of the backups? TRU Ball did. Now, I wouldn't want to let context get in the way of someone else's good time, but let's take a look at the rest of the field. The other competitors, not counting other releases from TRU Ball that received a fresh new Cerakote finish and called Tactical, were the following. B3 Archery released the Draw Thumb Release series, which is another variant of the Exit but works off of magnets instead of springs, and they come in open and closed hook designs. Those are interesting, and you can expect a review from me on those at some point. They also updated their hinges to include independently adjustable click and speed, which is a pretty significant increase in versatility that they didn't announce on social media or post any videos. So what the hell is B3 doing? Carter Enterprises released the Revelation, which is a variant of the Whisper, with a more swept 3-finger handle with a Stan-esque whale tail, and they offer the Wise Choice, First Choice, and Too Simple in a Plus model with a thicker trigger stem, or a 24 version of them with a trigger stem that accepts the Adjusto trigger bar. Other than those, the designs are unaltered, as is the rest of their line. Stanislavski Archery released the Lynx Hinge, which is intended to replace the Morex line that was discontinued. I made a video about them already because they actually released in December and were shipping before ATA. So it's new, but it wasn't actually released at ATA. Scott Archery didn't put out anything new, at least for ATA. They released their Apex Core Thumb Release and Select Hinges last year and seem to be keeping their line the same. They do have a new hinge that's a cross between the Select and Longhorn Hex called the Fusion, but it wasn't released at ATA and won't be shipping until mid-April to early May of 2024. TrueFire Archery's been fairly quiet in the handle release department. They released the Rivet, but that release has been out for years and sold under Bass Pro's Blackout label and called the Link. They also released an all-aluminum version of the Synapse called the Synapse Lite, and it has an MSRP of $149.99, which is a welcome surprise. It's not shipping yet, and as far as I know, they didn't release it at ATA, but you can look forward to a review of it on this channel when I get my hands on one, because I've been meaning to do one on the Synapse. This is future me interjecting on video footage and audio that I put in 2 weeks ago, and just got around to editing. I have to make a correction with regards to the TrueFire Synapse Lite. It was actually released at ATA, so it technically was in the running to go against the Ultimate Flex for the award of therefore new release, even though technically it's technically new, but it's an old design with new casing. So it was released at ATA, and I'm just clearing that up. Hotshot did not release anything new, but they are supposedly working on something new. I don't know what it is exactly, but they discontinued their Ecstasy hinge line, and were looking to replace it with something else. Whether that's what they're working on or not, they didn't reveal anything new at the ATA show. UltraView Archery has nothing new in the release department. I'm hoping for a 2-stage trigger in the UV button or a hinge and button with a shorter neck. Maybe next year when my bank account catches up. There was some discussion TAC last year. I talked to the sales reps there, and there was some discussion that they were working on something, and that was before the Stan Onyx clicker came out. So I think they have it in their mind that they're going to put something out to compete with it. Like I said, I'm hoping for a 2-stage trigger, and I'd buy one in a second. If it comes from UltraView, I really hope it has a shorter neck, because I'm going to have to readjust everything, and I can't pair it up with anything other than the Hinge 2.0. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next year, but this year, nothing. So it's no wonder TRU Ball came out on top against a murderer's row like I just laid out. A win is a win, I suppose, but context can be a bitch sometimes. The Ultimate Flex also occupies a slot in a slowly growing group of the most expensive releases on the market at $355 MSRP. The Ultimate Flex is an open hook thumb release and is the next level in TRU Ball's Pokemon-esque evolution of their releases. I hear next year's model will breathe fire and fly if you give it a good pep talk. If you're old enough to understand that reference, your knees make noise whenever you stand up. The Ultimate Flex comes in two sizes, medium and large, and the handle is only available in half aluminum, half quicksilver brass with a red aluminum head. The flex finger attachment is black anodized aluminum, provides 30 degrees of sweep, and the medium and large both use the same size flex finger. TRU Ball does not make a different flex finger for their mediums and larges, and I think they should. TRU Ball Flex releases that come in small, those being the HBC Flex, Executive Flex, and Fulcrum Flex, all hinges, by the way, use the pinky finger flex finger from the forefinger attachment as their ring finger. So while TRU Ball plays lip service to the concept of sizing, they also take shortcuts wherever they can. I have a separate video on this channel discussing my findings on that subject. Moving along, the Ultimate Flex comes in a blister pack like all TRU Ball releases, no matter their price tag. I continue to not care about what the release shows up in. I do not look down on any company who chooses not to waste money on fancy packaging. However, the items the company chooses to include or not include in the package can speak volumes. In the blister pack, you get the release setup as a 3-finger, the multi-axis thumb barrel assembly, a length of paracord with a cord lock set up as a lanyard, and the instruction card. The 4-finger flex fingers are no longer included and must be purchased separately for an extra $40. It also does not include any tools, and the release requires 3 different Allen keys and a Phillips or flathead screwdriver to make all the necessary adjustments to it. I always afford myself at least one F-bomb per review, so I'm going to use it now. Companies are becoming really fucking stingy with what they're including with their releases. Shit, at least UltraView releases come with a few wrenches, though I could make the argument they started this trend of selling accessories a la carte and bending their customers over the barrel. A $355 release should at least come with a 4-finger attachments and a few Allen keys, at minimum. Thankfully, there are no bolts on the Ultimate Flex that can't be turned with the trusty 50,000th to 3/16th yellow Allen key set, except for this Phillips head on the thumb barrel post that they keep insisting on using. I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. As with most, if not all, TRU Ball products, the fit and finish on the Ultimate Flex is flawless. They are one of the companies where their products come with a high price tag, but they do their due diligence when it comes to build quality and QC. TRU Ball is also made in the USA. Sizing of the Ultimate Flex is consistent with TRU Ball's current line, and it's fairly consistent with what you would consider to be a medium or large. I'll have scans of the medium in my sizing guide as soon as I can find the time to sit down and watch the scans through Photoshop, because the programs I was using previously decided to change things, and now I have to rethink the way I do stuff. So that's what I get for using free. Now I have to learn new thing. I have to learn Photoshop at almost 40 years old. One thing unique to the Ultimate Flex line is the addition of contoured finger grooves machined into the sides of the handle. The effect is a more fitted feel on the release body that allows archers with shorter fingers to achieve a solid J-hook grip around it. I have short fingers and wear a size small glove, and it gives me a repeatable grip and a flat hand at full draw. It's too bad the trigger leaves something to be desired, and I'll talk about that shortly. The scalloped handle reminds me of the Scott Sigma. The handle of the Sigma is unique in that it is wavy. It tapers at the finger beds and widens in the areas in between where you wrap your fingers. It also tapers at the ring finger, which is something the Ultimate Flex could do but does not. The flex finger that comes with the Ultimate Flex is straight and steps down a little from the thickness of the main handle. The handle actually tapers slightly and then it goes into a thinner flex finger. So it's a little thinner than the main body, just like the Blade Goat and Trident. It doesn't taper though. That being said, the flex finger is unchanged and is still the same size and shape that comes on the large and medium versions of all TRU Ball releases, with the exception of the HBC Flex, which is tapered. Those tapered flex fingers are interchangeable, and I would argue one of those would make more sense on the Ultimate Flex. If they're going to make the handle easier to wrap your fingers around it, then going a step further and giving it its own unique flex finger just like the HBC Flex would help to justify the price tag. They could even scallop it if they wanted to, but they didn't. The most one-for-one comparison to the Ultimate Flex is the Trident Pro, though you could actually say the same thing about the Blade and the Goat, because basically the finger beds are all the same size. All of those have more rounded finger beds instead of the scalloped ones on the Ultimate Flex. Unsurprisingly, the Ultimate Flex is easier to grip for me. For someone with longer fingers who's torn between the two, I would recommend going with the Trident if you wanted to go with one with the tri-hook design. If someone from TRU Ball is watching this, please give the Blade Pro Flex the machining treatment, the scalloped finger beds of the Ultimate Flex. That combo would have a great trigger, fantastic ergonomics, and I'd buy one in a second. The Ultimate Flex continues TRU Ball's practice of keeping the index finger bed smooth and adding traction to the middle finger bed in the form of vertical machined grooves on the release body, as well as cross-checkering on the flex fingers. I like this, in which more companies would machine traction directly onto the finger beds instead of requiring the user to put it on themselves in the form of skateboard tape and stuff like that, or grip tape. That way you get the benefits of added traction without adding any bulk to the handle, because I have terribly short, awful little fingers, and I can't afford to make the handles any thicker than they already are. When I go from a TRU Ball release to anything else, really, the anything else feels slippery until I get used to it again. So for that reason, and the deep grip I can get from the machined finger beds, I'm actually enjoying the Ultimate Flex after I got the trigger sorted out. It's actually my primary thumb release right now. The two most distinctive features of the Ultimate Flex are the tri-hook, which I'll talk about in a moment, and the extending neck design similar to the Executive Flex. The head doesn't rotate and it doesn't need to, but it has 1/4 inch of length adjustment. Fully extended, the hook sits in the same position as the Trident, Blade, HBC, Rave, T-Rex, Stalker, and Executive Flex in its fully retracted position. Fully retracted, the Ultimate Flex is about the same height as a Stan Onyx, so the adjustment range goes from normal length to shorter than normal. I think it would have made more sense to do what they did with the Executive Flex and make the retracted position the same as their other releases and then extend it out further, but they chose to do the opposite. That 1/4 inch of adjustment does make a noticeable difference in feel, though. I tried it on my bows with the fully extended position, and I found it made the setup feel too long, so I pulled it all the way in, and it felt far more comfortable. From a functional standpoint, I think an adjustable hook height makes more sense on a thumb release than a hinge, and my reason for thinking this has more to do with leverage than it does with micro-tuning your anchor point. When you extend the neck on the Executive Flex, the increased hook height makes the handle want to straighten out due to the change in leverage. So if you make adjustments on the fly, it's going to affect more than just your anchor point. The speed of the click and fire might also feel different due to a change in your hand position when you begin executing your shot. Naturally, the amount it's going to change is going to be specific to the archer, and those who pull with a lot more thumb and index finger are going to feel it more. That's why I keep my Executive Flex fully retracted, because I pull with a lot of index and thumb, and with a pinky forward handle, so a change in leverage and making me want to straighten it out could make it to the point where my hinge is too fast and I might punch myself in the face. Now, if we take that concept and switch platforms to a thumb release, I think it could be argued that a release with a longer neck might increase the repeatability of your anchor by robbing you of some of your leverage and forcing you to draw with even finger pressure. It's a similar principle as using a 2-finger release where you purposely give up the ability to apply leverage to the handle in exchange for a more easily repeatable anchor point. Making the neck shorter would end up doing the opposite, giving you back some of your leverage. This may have no effect, or it may possibly require an adjustment of the position of the thumb barrel if you draw the bow and discover it is now in a different position than it was before you made the neck adjustment, because now you have more control over the angle of your handle. All that being said, consistent practice and repetition should elicit in an archer a level of repeatability that should make micro-tuning your anchor point on the fly unnecessary. I would not begrudge anyone who finds value in it as a tuning tool, but I would not personally seek out these releases solely for this feature, with one exception. I do like both the Executive Flex and the Ultimate Flex for different reasons, so I'll chalk it up to saying they also happen to do this thing even though I don't use it myself. I personally think it is a solution in search of a problem. The hook position on the Ultimate Flex in relation to the handle and finger beds are exactly the same as most of the other high-end TRU Ball releases. There is a chance that if you use a TRU Ball hinge and try to pair it with the Ultimate Flex, The adjustable head might be useful in matching the points of impact between the two different styles of release. But TRU Ball advises that you test the trigger after making any neck length adjustments. I can't really feel a difference, but an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of dental work. In my experience, having the hooks in the exact same position does not guarantee a similar point of impact when pairing two different types of releases, even when attempting to use a similar style of shot execution, such as shooting your thumb release with back tension like a hinge. It can be still harder when you use different methods of shot execution like pulling through with a hinge and a trigger pull on a thumb. From my experience, hook height does seem to be a factor, but it's not as easy a thing to test empirically. For me, I found that a shorter necked thumb tends to pair with a longer necked hinge as long as the lateral hook position over the fingers is close to each other. That way I can load pressure into the back wall similar to when I'm using a hinge, and then I just squeeze the trigger. The other unique feature TRU Ball is pushing is the tri-hook. It consists of a 3-spoked gear which acts as the hook, and when the trigger is pulled, the star is rotated and the next hook is advanced. The system is intended to be self-resetting and require no intervention from the archer to get back on the D-loop for the next arrow more quickly. They installed a magnet in the Trident and Ultimate Flex to hold the hook in the ready position after they neglected to do so on the Extension Flex, where it was left to spin freely. It didn't compromise its function, but it required the archer to press on it to expose what I call the hot hook, the one that's supposed to hook onto the D-loop, or you had to hold it exposed to get hooked onto the D-loop, or else it would just flop around freely. The magnets mostly fixed that issue. On my Ultimate Flex, the hook resets, but can also rebound in a way that it can get stuck without the hot hook exposed and ready to hook up again, so it would look like this. The 3 Tridents I own don't do that. They actually reset properly and do expose the hot hook every time. So with this particular Ultimate Flex, it requires you to nudge the hook with your finger if the magnet doesn't catch, or if the magnet catches the hot hook. The Tridents feel like they have a stronger magnet in them, so that's probably why. So being a descendant of the Trident Flex, TRU Ball makes a number of claims about the Ultimate Flex that may or may not translate into real-world results. I'm going to hold off on breaking down the claims that TRU Ball is making about the Ultimate Flex being faster, quieter, or more accurate than other releases, because I already covered most of them when I reviewed the Trident. The Ultimate Flex is a Trident Pro with a few refinements, so everything that applies to the Trident's claims also applies to the Ultimate Flex. Any differences they do have between them I will highlight, because now TRU Ball has 2 very similar releases that compete directly with each other, and I did that very well, and my heater just had to go and turn on. The gist of my response to the previous claims about the Trident and now about the Ultimate Flex is that there's probably a measurable difference on paper, but probably won't make a significant difference over what you are already using, because even the most consistent of us are not able to repeat anything twice in a row with machine-like precision. If you want to listen to me break down each point, please check out my Trident Pro Flex video. Under the section, everything has a claim. It's like claim number 1, claim number 2, and then I talk about those. I am, however, going to have to talk about its trigger, because anyone who is interested in this release needs to know what to expect when you get it. The Ultimate Flex is on the quieter side of thumb releases as compared to this new for 2024 Carter Wise Choice 24. That sucker is loud. However, since the quietest bow is louder than the loudest release, and the noise occurs almost simultaneously, any noise your release makes is not likely to be heard by any creature other than yourself. The trigger on the Ultimate Flex has been described as feeling faster than other sear-activated releases, and it kinda does. TRU Ball attributes this to having fewer linkages between the trigger and the hook, and the force of the bowstring pulling the hook open instead of springs pushing the hook out of the way of the D-loop. The trigger on the Ultimate Flex is the same as the Trident, though it feels a little more refined in that the trigger on the Trident has a little bit of stacking. There's a little step where the hook partially moves and then releases on the Trident. The Ultimate Flex does not have that. You just pull, and at some point during the pulling stage, it releases. It doesn't release at the bottom of its travel, just like the Abyss Extension Flex, from which its internals are derived. So it's basically the Trident and the Ultimate Flex are a lot like the Abyss Extension Flex, only you you do not have the option to set it as a resistance release. That's the big difference. Out of the packaging, the trigger on the Ultimate Flex was extremely sensitive, and using it on a shot trainer, I was barely able to touch the barrel with my thumb before it would release the hook. So I had to increase trigger tension to maximum so I could settle into it. Like most TRU Ball releases, trigger tension falls in the light to medium range, unless you start introducing different aftermarket springs to bump up that range. I put an M1 Garand extractor spring in mine to get the tension up where I like it, and I actually enjoy using it that way because it allows me to settle into the thumb barrel without worrying about it releasing the hook prematurely. I don't know if it's recommended whether you're supposed to use that or not, and I'll never send anything in for warranty work, so if it fails, it fails. After having used it for a few months, the reason I think it feels faster is because the trigger has no perceptible wall or break point, so you can't actually detect the exact spot in the trigger travel when the Ultimate Flex is going to release its hook. So unless you slam it down, it's going to surprise you a little every time if you squeeze or pull through. Think of it as a very light single-stage trigger on a rifle or target pistol. TRU Ball does say it's a good release for command shooting, and I can vouch for that if you can get used to laying your thumb on the barrel, knowing it can be set touchier than our current president visiting a local kindergarten. The Ultimate Flex does not have what I would describe as a crisp trigger. Crisp is one of those marketing terms thrown around, and it is often conflated with triggers that can fire with a short amount of travel but no wall and break point. That is what the Ultimate Flex is. A release with a crisp trigger has a wall you can feel where you can press against it and feel resistance. Then when pressure is increased sufficiently, the trigger fires with a short, fast break. The go-to comparison is snapping a glass rod. The Ultimate Flex is like snapping a soft-baked cookie. You can't tell the exact point when it broke until it's broken. However, I'm not saying the Ultimate Flex cannot be set to have very short travel. I'm merely saying it doesn't fit my definition of crisp, and it has a feel that is more akin to releases that are far less expensive. The single sear types like the B3 Exit, the Stan Axis, stuff like that, have a very similar feel for trigger and kind of feel just as fast and yet are still far less expensive. Adjusting the head on the Ultimate Flex is a matter of loosening a set screw that sits diagonally on the aluminum side of the release, and then inserting a larger Allen key than you would have expected into this hole in the back. Turning this screw clockwise retracts the head, and counterclockwise extends it. There are hash marks on the neck to see how far out you have it set, and while I haven't tried pushing my luck, the head doesn't seem to have the kind of hard stoppers the Executive Flex has in its neck, so be careful not to over-tighten it on either end. Tension and travel adjustments are in the same location as the Trident Blade and Goat. The tension adjustment is at the top of the handle in front of the thumb barrel assembly, and travel adjustment is a tiny ass set screw at the bottom of or on the spine on the bottom underneath the thumb barrel assembly and at the base of the neck. So now that I've gone through all of that, the question I feel I have to answer is, do I think the Ultimate Flex is worth the price? And I don't know if I have a good answer for that. First off, $355 is way too expensive for any release, especially one that shows up with so little. So if we disregard that part, let's talk about the positives. The TRU Ball Ultimate Flex is probably the most technically advanced thumb release on the market. There is a lot of engineering and thought put into this thing. Ergonomically, it's very comfortable for me anyway, having short fingers. The trigger is an acquired taste. The extendable head is another tool in the toolbox. I think of it as a solution in search of a problem. Are there other releases that do everything this one does? Technically, no, but there are plenty of others with feature sets that cover most of it, some of whom come as a kit with more options and a lower price tag. So at the expense of being non-committal myself, if you understand what it is and you like the feature set and can stomach the price tag, go for it. If not, there is literally something for everyone when it comes to release aids. This one is I'm actually using it as my primary, even though your mileage may vary because I had to put in a different spring in order to be comfortable with it because, like I said, very, very touchy. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and happy hunting.